Hello, my friends. Let's start with the fact that Trump said he's ready to move on to the second stage of sanctions against Russia, but he didn't give any specifics.
Are you ready? Are you ready to move to the second phase? Are you ready to move to the second phase of sanctions against Russia or punishing Putin?
But Putin, feeling no consequences, late last night once again launched a wave of Shaheds at Kyiv and beyond. Thus, the shelling of Ukrainian territory continues. Reports say that yesterday there were 7 strikes in Kremenchuk. Up to 7 strikes hit the Kryukiv Bridge across the Dnipro. This is a critically important logistics artery. As we can see, Russia has already started hitting the most important logistics arteries, and that means he's trying to break Ukraine and is taking the war to a new level. But at the front, unfortunately, the situation is bad to begin with. Over the past week, according to foreign analysts, the Russians managed to capture 88 square kilometers, and with the gray zone included 120 square kilometers, which is very significant. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian forces managed to reclaim 5 square kilometers or 35 if you count the gray zone. But in any case, as we can see for now, the Russians are advancing more. Now let's move on to the Dobropillia direction. Here, it hasn't been possible to push the Russians back. On the contrary, they're advancing again, and they've significantly expanded the territory they control in 3 directions at once toward the village of Stepy, toward Rubizhne, and toward Zolotый Kolodязь. They also continue storming Shahove and shelling Dobropillia. So the situation is catastrophic, and the Russians keep pulling in reserves here for future attacks. In the Pokrovsk direction. Unfortunately, the Russians also managed to advance. They recaptured Udachne and are trying to move further forward. They are storming Rodinske, pushing through from Krasny Lyman toward Mirnograd. Fighting is underway for Novoekonomichne, Mirolubivka, the village of Promень. They are breaking through to the outskirts of Mirnograd, storming Sukhy Yar, Lysivka, Novopavlivka, the outskirts of Pokrovsk, Molodetske, and battles continue around Udachne, Kotline, and Zvirove. Over 50 assaults in a single day, and the activity is only increasing, both in shelling and offensive actions. But late last night, there were reports of drone strikes on Donetsk and Makiyivka, which caused fires. So the Ukrainian forces are also continuing to hit the Russian rear. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians also managed to advance closer to the city. It's important to note that here they're already actively moving through Dnipropetrovsk region. In addition, they are storming Dachne, Filia, Zelený Gай, Alexandrograd, and breaking through near the village of Tolstoy. The activity here is extremely high. As we can see, the front is gradually moving. And in the Velyka Novosilka direction, the Russians captured 2 villages in Dnipropetrovsk region at once, possibly even 3, but the capture of the 3rd hasn't yet been confirmed by the Ukrainian forces, so we are waiting for more information. But Suntsivka and Novoselivka have definitely fallen under Russian control, and here the advance amounted to 6.5 kilometers, which is very significant. And considering that not long ago, on September 1st, the Russians also seized Komushuvacha And Temirivka, here the front in this area is moving quite substantially. But Zelensky said that as long as Putin hasn't occupied all of Ukraine, we're winning.
What does victory look like in Ukraine?
Victory, to my mind, Putin's goal is to occupy Ukraine. This is to destroy us, occupy. And did he occupy it?
No,
It mean that he didn't win. It means that we have Ukraine.
but he still wants to win.
Yes, but till he didn't occupy us, we win. And I think so, because we have our country.
Friends, be sure to share your thoughts about this in the comments. It's very interesting to hear your opinion. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, assaults on Stepnohirsk continue and shelling is ongoing. Although there have been no changes over the past day, the Ukrainian forces are so far able to repel all attacks. In the Kherson direction, the situation remains stable for now. The Russians are not carrying out any new attacks, and the front line hasn't changed over the past day. However, shelling continues at full intensity, mostly carried out using FPV drones. Now let's move on to the situation in the Kostyantynivka direction. Here, the Russians have also managed to advance closer to the villages of Virolubivka and Maiske. In this way, the front is gradually moving here as well, and the front is approaching both Kostyantynivka and Drushkivka, so the situation here is seriously deteriorating. At the same time, assaults on Protechene, Oleksandro Shultine, Pleshiivka, the village of Klebanbyk and Rusin Yar continue, and they are breaking through beyond Poltavka. Over 20 assaults occurred in a single day, and the activity shows no signs of slowing down. In the Siversk direction, assaults on Dronivka and Serebryanka continue, and they are breaking through near Grigorivka and storming Pereizne, but over the past day there have been no new changes, and for now all attacks are being successfully repelled. In the Lyman direction, it hasn't been possible to repel all attacks, and the Russians have advanced to Novoselivka, Drobusheva, and the village of Stavky. The advance is very significant, and the Russians are already 9 kilometers from Svetohirsk. Only 4 kilometers, 800 meters remain to the outskirts of Lyman. Thus, the situation here is rapidly deteriorating. At the same time, assaults on Dvorichna continue. They are breaking through near the village of Kolodezi, storming Shandrigolove and Karpivka, and pushing beyond Ridkodub toward Olhivka. Events here are developing very quickly, and the Ukrainian soldiers had warned for days that the situation was difficult, and today we can see that a serious retreat is necessary. In the Borova direction, the Russians are storming Novoplatonivka and Novokruglякivka. So far, they haven't been able to secure new positions, but their attacks continue. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are storming the outskirts of the city and are also operating FPV drones intensively. However, over the past day, there have been no new changes, and the capture of even part of Kupiansk by the Russians hasn't been confirmed. In the Dvorichna direction, it's currently quiet. The Russians are not carrying out any new assaults, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are not carrying out any new attacks, and for now, the situation has stabilized. In Vovchansk, the Russians have also begun regrouping, and so far no new assaults have been recorded. In the Sumy direction, activity is low, but attacks continue in the areas of Andriivka, Oleksiivka, and Yunakivka. At the same time, there have been no changes to the front line. And today, Zelensky said that he is willing to hold talks with Putin anywhere, just not in Russia.
He said he will meet if you come to Moscow.
He can come to Kyiv. You know, if a person doesn't want to meet during the war, of course he can propose something which can't be acceptable by me or by other. But it's understandable. I can't go to Moscow when my country is under missiles, under attacks each day. I can't go to this capital of these terrorists. It's understandable, and he understands it. It's the same proposition, as I said, that he has to come to Kyiv. Yeah, so it's understandable that he is doing it to postpone the meeting. I always said we can't trust Putin.
Zelensky also said that pressure needs to be put on Putin, but even European countries continue to buy oil from Russia. The president stated that partners must stop purchasing Russian energy resources because this is Putin's main weapon. I am grateful to our partners, but some of them continue to buy Russian oil and gas. It's unfair, to be honest. Therefore, we must stop buying energy from Russia and, in general, any deals. There can be no agreements if we want to stop Russia. Meanwhile, the US Secretary of the Treasury said that they are preparing sanctions.
President Trump, Vice President Vance had a very productive call with EU President Ursula von der Leyen on Friday. She followed up with a call with me, and we are talking about what can the two EU and the US do together. And we are prepared. We are prepared to increase pressure on Russia, but we need our European partners to follow us, because if the US and the EU do this together, we are in a race now between how long can the Ukrainian military hold up versus how long can the Russian economy hold up. And if the US and the EU can come in, do more sanctions, secondary tariffs on the countries that buy Russian oil, the Russian economy will be in full collapse, and that will bring President Putin to the table.
Okay, all right.
That's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.